Okay, thank you, gentlemen, first and foremost for taking your time out of your busy schedules to come have a sit down with me. Something positive, something inspirational, and I just want to thank you both, Dr. Horace and Mr. Harris, both for taking time. Now I have a few questions I want to ask you all.
Sure.
Starting with you, Doctor. Do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So, again, I'm Dr. Henry Horace, and I'm the Dean of Adult Education here at Kenneth College. I was born and raised in Monroeville, Liberia, so it's a long ways away.
Yeah.
But lots of similarities. If you know the quick history of Liberia, Liberia was founded by free American slaves. So when Marcus Garvey talked about going back to Africa, that was the whole concept, and the country sort of developed from there. So, and I've always had inspiration to work with the underserved and the underprivileged. So my entire professional career has been around social service and education. So it's been a privilege working in Inglewood, and sort of my life story is pretty similar. So it's a long story. I'm not going to go into all of it, but really I'm excited about the work we do here and changing lives. And so thanks for allowing me to share, and it's been a great opportunity.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Now, Mr. Harris, do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm a native of Chicago. It's my hometown. I've lived in several cities other than Chicago, but always considered Chicago home. I say privileged to be raised up in one of these disadvantaged, underprivileged communities. I learned so many things. I learned firsthand what a village was, what it meant to have eyes on you wherever you went. And so I came up during the time when that was, the village was very alive and well. And I think that it embedded in me this sense of brotherhood, this sense of village. And so I've kind of fashioned my life after that. I've tried to go into a place and to reconstruct this village concept, this concept of community. And that is especially true here at Kennedy King. As a teacher, I have a passion for teaching. I'm fortunate to be able to do it here at Kennedy King. So I've lived my life doing so. I have outside interests, personal business, things of that nature, but always at heart is this passion for teaching, this passion for sharing my experiences, for learning from others, and from drawing out the creative genius in others as well. And so I, too, count it a privilege to be here today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now, Dr. Horace, do you tell us a little about how it was growing up, how it was growing up where you're from?
So I think that's one of the things I really value, as Mr. Harris referenced, working and living in Chicago, because Chicago is a very segregated city. So not in a negative way. The connotation I'm thinking of is growing up, I grew up in a place where it was segregated, but economically, in terms of haves and have-nots. And so coming to Chicago and learning the culture and assimilating, I kind of realized that kind of similar that way, that there's a core group of people who just need extra support, and having been in the United States and being helped by such wonderful different groups of people in Chicago, whites, blacks, different ethnicities, made me appreciate the generosity of the United States. And so having a passion to work with the underserved, it was just a perfect combination with my personality and just being fortunate. I've always said being in the United States is a privilege, and so working in this community and has really been fruitful and fascinating for my career and my personal development. So Liberia is a place far away, but sort of the similarities in the cultures and just the way the humanity of the people of the United States sort of accepted me, and it's really changed my life and made me more aware of how what we do affect each other. You know,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Harris talks about the community and just the brotherhood and just looking out for each other. So it's yeah, we can go on for hours because I think we have such similar views on things.
Yes, sir. Now, I'm curious as to know how what landed you into Chicago, by the way.
So, you know, I'm the last of 7 children. I have 5 sisters.
Okay.
And all of my sisters live in the United States. And one of them my youngest sister lives in Chicago.
Okay.
And so when I got here, obviously, she was the youngest girl. I'm the youngest total. So we decided to live together and go to college.
Oh, okay.
So, and I loved it, and I've been to all the places, but Chicago is such a great, fascinating city, and so just stayed in and lived there for about 30 years.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you. Mr. Harris, do you mind telling us a little bit about how it was growing up in Chicago?
Growing up in Chicago, the beauty of growing up in Chicago is because there was a sense of community, because there was a sense of love, there was a sense of nurturing, because there were strong institutions there, the boys' club, the churches, the parks, community centers. You didn't get the sensibility, although you may have lived in a quote-unquote underprivileged or disadvantaged neighborhood, you didn't get the sensibility of that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, having a loving family, you may not have gotten the best toys, but you felt rich in so many other ways. And so there was a decided advantage living in the city of Chicago. There was this vibrancy. We lived about 10 miles from downtown, so it was within our reach.
Mm-hmm.
The transportation system here in Chicago was phenomenal.
Yes.
So you had the opportunity to travel by vehicle, the transportation system, to get out to know other parts of the city of Chicago. And so a lot of the outside things that you hear about Chicago, the Chirac, Chicago this and Chicago that, growing up you don't get the sensibility of that.
Right.
When you juxtapose that with the fact that I was blessed to be able to go down south, to visit my grandmother and witness a whole nother way of life, a rural way of
Things
life,
completely different.
where things are done absolutely and completely different. Where a place where I thought that I was going on vacation, but was learned quickly that my grandmother had other plans. Get out in the field, fella, get to work. But the love, the fact that everybody owned their land there, they had acres and acres of land, they had cattle and so on and so forth. Just a whole nother dimension of life for me. And so for me it was tough. You know, I can't say it wasn't tough. There were certain neighborhoods and community that you were not to go to, you were not allowed to go without running into some trouble. Some of them were in your own community, some of them were in other communities, other ethnic communities. But it was actually a good life. It was a great life. It was a great upbringing. But it did hit home for me that there were some definite differences, some unfair differences that our communities experienced and others. And so I developed this deep sense of that difference as well, and thought that when I grew up, I would devote my life to trying to level the playing field, so to speak, through vehicles of education and other vehicles as well.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Do you feel that if you had grown up somewhere else, that things would have turned out different for you, or you would have maybe chosen a different path as to where you are now?
Wow, that's an interesting question. Probably not, because I think it's all about the values that you were raised with, the input you get from your parents or from the adults who are around you. So I think, regardless of where I was raised, I think I was always instilled certain characteristics that sort of groomed who I became. So I try not to be a follower. I try to do what's right. Right is right, and wrong is not right. So I think the influence we get from our parents and from the adults around us is very important, and it shaped who we are. But I think, having to live in Chicago and having such rich culture here and getting to know so many great people, whether it was in college or professionally at work, it's really helped to shape who I became. But I think at the core of where we live or who we associate with, it's the value that is instilled in us by either our parents or mentors or adults who impacts our life positively. So,
all right, thank you. Now, Mr. Harris, do you feel that you might have chosen a different path if you would have grown up somewhere else, or maybe different environment?
I believe that a person who has a sense of who they are and what they're meant to do is a very fortunate person. I've seen people who don't have that sensibility or haven't developed it yet. And so at an early age I knew that I was a people person. I tried to get away from it. Because I had this idea in my head of the monetary things, the material things in life as a youngster, as a teenager. But because of and I agree with Dr. Horace, the way that we raise the people who we come in contact with, the way that we react to our experiences, the way we handle the different experiences that take place in our life, tend to shape us, but they also allow us to dream, to see, to run true to our passions. And so I believe that wherever I might have been raised, wherever I might have been placed, whatever the situation, the circumstances may have been, that I would end up where I am now. And I think that's for me, that's a good place. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I just want to ask 2 more questions, and we're going to start with you, Dr. Horace. Can you tell us one of your proudest moments?
I think I don't celebrate a whole lot because I think, hard work usually pays off. But I have to say, I'll go back to it. It may seem very simple, but the United States is a great country, and having an opportunity to come here and it truly was a blessing. So I think, something that you guys probably take for granted, becoming a United States citizen 30 years ago, I was very proud of that because that enabled me to become everything that I am today. Education, work, 2 master's degree, a doctorate degree.
Yes.
Truly, my story isn't possible anywhere else in the world. Barack Obama, President Obama talks about that all the time. The United States gets all kinds of criticism from all walks of life, but realistically, this is the richest and the most opportunistic country in the world, and having the opportunity to come here and live, to make it my home, and meet so many great people and get educated, I have to say becoming a United States citizen was one of the proudest, if not the proudest moment I've ever had since I've been in the United States.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And it's kind of funny, but it's not that, people joke about how Hispanics have more than one job, but, they appreciate the fact of being in America and to have opportunities because they don't have those opportunities where they come from. So to be able to be here and to take advantage of all these opportunities and everything, and like you said so yourself, like it's been great. And
it's a privilege
for
sure. Absolutely.
And it's really, really great that the opportunities in America are endless.
Yeah.
And Mr. Harris, I want to ask you, sir, can you tell us one of your most proudest moments?
If you don't mind, I'd like to share 2 with you.
Yes,
These are personal. I have a lot of moments that are related to my work and what I do, but there are 2 personal moments that are particularly major for me. The first one was when I left my first, the kitchen of my first apartment, and went into the dining room. My mother was sitting there. And I asked her, I said, Mom, I said, you cut the light on back in the kitchen. Are you going to use that light again? She said, yes. She said, I'm going to cut every light on in your house. Then we'll cut on your television. To let me know, yeah, okay, now you understand what I was trying to do all those years. That was a problem with my first apartment.
Absolutely.
That was my independence, you know. I would say I had arrived.
Yeah.
And the second moment was when I completed all documentation for the first rental property I bought. I was just, you know, a kid coming off the block, you know, and reaching a point where he could do that. That was
amazing.
Just, oh, it's fantastic. I still think about it.
Yes.
In the office sometimes. So those are two particularly important.
I've been told the most biggest investments or purchases you'll make in your life is your car and your home.
And the most nerve-wracking.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And for my final question, gentlemen, I just want some words of encouragement or words of wisdom for our viewers. What do you think as a man or as a black man at that you need to know about making it and going far in life?
Wow, so it's a good question. You know, I like to be really introspective about life. I talk a little bit about what Mr. Harris talked about, I think the first question you asked him, about really knowing who you are. Because oftentimes the path we lead is triggered by who we think we are, who we really know we are. So being a black man or African American in the United States, I think our history is very important. So really reading about black history, black culture, you know, black participation in the Civil War, you know, slavery, how blacks transition from one generation to the next, one century to the next. And I think just being able to pass that on to your children, to younger people who you come in contact with, you know, reading about black authors and getting to know all the great black, you know, scientists and you know, the whole science and technology and engineering and mathematics, you know, blacks' contribution to science that usually you wouldn't learn in the traditional secondary schools. I think figuring out how blacks have built or contributed to the evolution of the United States, I think
so much.
It builds such confidence and pride that it makes you just want to be a part of that.
Yes.
And your growth development, it takes off. So I think it's just, you know, getting to know who you are, learning your culture, reading, you know, informing yourself and not waiting to get told by the media or by, you know, a formal education, because sometimes we just won't get it there. So,
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Harris. Now, I just want to ask you the same question. You know, some words of encouragement or words of wisdom for our viewers. What do you think as a man or as a black man that you need to know about going far or just making it in life?
I think that one of the premier challenges to us is to try and fix things before we go on to the next frontier. And I don't think that that's realistic. I think that if you are planning a trip, go on a trip. You'll never get enough money to go. If you're planning a career, work towards it. Whether you have all the money right now, whether you have all the support that you need right now, go on and just work towards it. Because I guarantee you, if you work hard enough and long enough, someone's going to gravitate to you along the way. It's going to help you. It's going to see to it. It's going to be just as invested as you are and see to it that you're successful, that you can make it in life, as you can excel in life. So my prescription is to do it. Don't allow yourself to delve into anything negative, contradictory to what your goal is. So I think that that's probably the best piece of information. It's a piece of information I've always used for myself, and I highly recommend it for others as well.
Yes, sir.
You have to support that 100%.
Yes, sir.
I hate to interject, but that is so important.
That is really important. And you know, it's when you said about as far as just sometimes you just going, and you know, I know a lot of people. I've met a lot of people that only seen so far as their neighborhoods, or you know, just Chicago. I think it's really important that, you know, to just get out there and, you know, just see different things and see how things are done, and just open your mind up, and just, you know, to let you know that there's more out there.
Absolutely.
So I think that's really important, you know, and that you said that for us to take advantage of that.
And some will find out what's out there, but then become overwhelmed by their everyday realities, overwhelmed by physical ailment, and sometimes even mental setbacks. I mean, some of the experiences we face can affect us, not just physically, but sometimes even mental.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to, as best we can, learn to manage all of that. When we seek the help as best we can, but we work as hard as we can as well to manage, and it gets to be okay. If we're always doing our best, if we're never giving up, if we're always trying, I think we'd be amazed at how much better our life, how much more enriched our life can be, and how much more of an impact we can have, on others.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes, sir. All right. Well, thank you both, gentlemen, for taking time and having to sit down with me, and thank you all, our viewers. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir,
Thanks so much
for having me.